is the Chief Executive Officer from Strategicon Pharma, sponsor, or Clinical Maestro as well. Anka has over 15 years of experience in the biopharmaceutical industry, working both on the CRO and the sponsor side. She's currently a founder and CEO of Strategicon Pharma, developer of Clinical Maestro, which is the industry's only end-to-end cloud-based platform for clinical trial budgeting, sourcing, and contract management, including strategic alliance, partnership, and partnership management. Previously, she served as head of clinical outsourcing and analytics for BioMarin Pharmaceuticals, where she was responsible for vendor contractual relationship and financial management. She also has several leadership positions with PharmaNet Development Group, which is now Syneos Health, Icon Clinical Research, and eMetagen Corporation. And for Anka's fun fact of the day, Anka is actually a fiction writer, which a lot of people I did not know. She writes poems, essays, and most recently a novel, which I will let her tell you what kind of novel that is at networking break. And she speaks 4 languages. So please welcome Anka Kopescu.
First, I wanted to say how thrilled I am to be here today in this event, which is first of its kind, and working with Deborah as an entrepreneur and trying to do something different about many pain points. And I like your motto of the meeting, which is connecting on business aspects of clinical trials. Because we don't talk enough about the business aspects of clinical trials and the pain that surrounds them. Before starting Strategicon, I was very much in the world of clinical outsourcing and living many of the pains that we are now trying to solve with technology today. And the decision to go from a stable job to starting a company and becoming an entrepreneur, I can tell you it's not an easy one, and it's not an easy path by no means. But it can only be fueled by strong feelings, and I'm a person of strong feelings. And the strong feelings for me was first and foremost passion for this field. I really believe that technology can and will continue to influence our day-to-day life, and that we owe it to ourselves to embrace it, adopt it, recognize it, and foster it. On the other hand, I feel very frustrated by how things have been moving in our industry, particularly in the field of business operations. And looking at new technology coming in our space, it's a void. But I do believe that there is a path forward, and this is what I would like to tell you about. I want to start with a survey which we have recently taken, and that survey is still open, so if you have time, please take it as well. We call it pains in the clinical trial sourcing, and actually in the general business operations space. So what we have found, I think should be of no surprise to you, but what I'm trying to get is to stimulate you to think about how to change some of these challenges, which are actually quite well-known facts. So one of the things that came out of this survey is that about 40% of the sponsors read less than 50% of the proposals they receive. And we asked the question why. It seems like a staggering low number, considering that hundreds of hours and in the hundreds of thousands of dollars are being spent to generate proposals by the service providers. And the recurring theme is the reason why proposals are not being read is because they are hard to read. And because we sponsors, when we send the proposals, and I'm now seeing that even more being on the vendor side, we send them in a way that is not easy to access, like an Excel spreadsheet. And it's not easy to follow the flow or even understand the intent behind a certain selection. The other interesting fact is that about 58% of the sponsors store their bids in email. Now, we know that email comes and goes with a person. I think that is probably not the case so much of large organizations, but it's still staggering that we are so buried in document management around key instrumental elements of clinical outsourcing. And especially now with the focus on inspection readiness and vendor oversight, it is unacceptable that we do not put more organization, let's say, around document management in vendor selection and in outsourcing. About 56% of the sponsors base their study budget on CRO bids alone. That should be a no surprise. I think it was a question before that it was asked to you, Samir, do you need to do a competitive bid? And my answer would be no, if you had the data at your fingertips. You wouldn't have to engage a hopeful CRO or other partner in creating a bid grid in the hope of winning a proposal just to get another budgetary estimate. We should be having the cost at our fingertips. And even more, I would say that there is no mystery in costing clinical trials. And what we are trying to do with Clinical Maestro is demystifying that. As much as there is pretty clear market on buying cars, and you know that Porsche is going to be more expensive than Toyota, so we should be no secret about how much a Porsche costs and how much a Toyota costs. So I think it's about bringing data forward and collecting key data that would take the mystery out of clinical trials and make benchmarking much more powerful than it is today, which is a highly manual process. Another point which I like, and it makes me smile, and you will know why in a second, about 80% of the sponsors do use a bid grid. That's wonderful. But let me tell you, each bid grid, it's different. So we are talking about hundreds of different bid grids. And when you go back and to relate to our providers and our partners, their costing system look nothing like the Merck bid grid. What is coming out, the output of their costing tools, it's not aligned to any of the bid grids, and good luck aligning, because there are no two bid grids that are the same. And I would say personally at BioMarine, I had a bid grid that was no less than 400 lines. Yesterday, we actually went on a presentation about Clinical Maestro. We were asked if we have codes associated with each task in Maestro. And I started smiling because I said, you don't need codes. We are not working in Excel. I don't have to call this task BM2536 because we deconstructed the concept of bid grid. It no longer exists. What we are doing, we are shopping for unique services. And this is the type of revolution in thinking and in hopefully technology only brings it together, but it's a revolution in process that should take us away from creating our little standard. Let's open up the standards to everyone, and let's come together as an industry to take the cost associated with proposal writing, proposal due diligence down, because this cost is by no means insignificant. It's actually quite big across the industry. And the last point, which brings the same theme of the standardization, 93% of the sponsors and CROs that participated in the surveys, they said they would like more standardization. And I think I'd like to refer to the success of Veeva as one company that had a meteoric growth in a record amount of time. And it's part of it, yes, it's technology, but it's Salesforce technology. So it's not technology in itself that made them truly successful. What I think made Veeva and other companies truly successful is the approach to the process. And they rallied the industry around the DIA ETMF standards. They try to foster alignment within the industry, and they made it easier for the sponsors and the CRO to speak the same language. And what we are trying to do with Maestro, and what I'm hoping to show you in 10 minutes, 15 minutes today, is a teaser of where we believe the industry must be going. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we as leaders in the industry must be embracing more standardization, more technology, and really pay attention to the cost of doing business. And the cost of doing vendor selection, bid due diligence, benchmarking, clinical forecasting, you name it, all of the things that maybe are not as sexy to talk about as patient centricity or blockchain, they cost the organization a lot of money, both the sponsor in having to support the infrastructure, but for the CROs as well, who are our partners and who have to keep remapping and giving us KPIs and intelligence in a way that is not only non-techy, but it's not native to the way they operate. So with that, I would like to share a few thoughts about our vision. Our vision is quite simple. First and foremost, we wanted to have an easy way to collect the data so we can make the process of budgeting very easy. We had a target that in 5 minutes you should be 95% accurate. Why? It's because today, if you want to know the price of another commodity, which may be not as sophisticated as clinical trials, you may be able to Google it and find out what that cost should be. So we believe that costing by no means should be a mystery. So that was our first goal when we started on this path of vision. Benchmarking should be available to everyone because the discussion is not so much about the rates. Rates have been around, they are inflated every year by a certain percentage, highly predictable. They are adjusted because of exchange rates, but they have been consistent. The discussion is about effort. How much does it take you to perform an activity? And then the effort has to do with the operational strategy and infrastructure of the CRO. And two CROs being the same and pricing a resource at the exact same price can have vastly different pricing model because of the efficiency or because of where resources are located and because of their process, because they over-allocate VPs to tasks, and a million other of shades that what we are trying to do is expose the mystery behind the effort. And then we want transparency. We want to just break that wall of, hey, I am a sponsor and I am a CRO. We should be working together. We are pushing the envelope and saying, you sponsors in this room should be able to generate a quote yourself. You should not need to go to a big CRO. If you know their rates, if you have negotiated their process, you could be creating the budget yourself, and then the discussion is about operational excellence. It's about strategy. It's about the best employment of process and resources. So move away from the budget management, which should be a tiny percentage of the work that you spend in selecting vendors, and shift towards excellence, quality, governance, and execution. And finally, we really stand behind your ability as sponsors and as CROs to have the bids in a database. And this is no thrilling technology, having bids in a database, but it's so powerful because we sit on a huge data trove which is unleashed. I can't imagine how many thousands of proposals, Bridget, you had at Merck, or how many you have, Samir, in Novartis. But what are we doing in a better understanding the underlying data that we have in our own data trove? How can we truly say that we started at point A and we ended at point Z 5 beta years later? And what have we done in between? So digitizing the bid grids for us, it's fundamental. And I will end by saying that I do believe in predictive analytics. I do believe that the data is, yes, more valuable than oil, and that it not only can be mined, but we can use it intelligently to feed it back into our process so we can make better informed decisions. So with all this long introduction on a live technology demo, hopefully the internet's not going to fail me, let me show you Clinical Maestro.